Number 3. A 38-year-old became one of the stars of the World Cup. Most footballers are either retired or thinking about retirement by the time they reach 38 years old. At that age, the physical demands of professional football become incredibly difficult to keep up with, especially at the highest level. That's why what Roger Milla achieved at the 1990 World Cup sounds almost impossible. Before the tournament, Cameroon weren't expected to make much of an impact. In fact, many people predicted they would struggle against some of the world's strongest football nations. But Cameroon had a secret weapon, a veteran striker named Roger Milla. At 38 years old, Milla was already considered past his best. Many believed his greatest footballing years were behind him. But once the World Cup began, he completely changed that narrative. Coming off the bench, Milla brought energy, confidence and goals when his team needed them most. He scored against Romania in the group stage before producing another brilliant performance against Colombia in the round of 16. That match would create one of the most memorable moments in World Cup history. With the game tied in extra time, Milla capitalised on a mistake from Colombian goalkeeper René Higuita, stealing the ball and scoring to help Cameroon secure a famous victory. Suddenly, the entire world was talking about Cameroon. As Milla celebrated his goals with his famous dances near the corner flag, he became one of the faces of the tournament. Fans everywhere fell in love with his personality, his story, and his ability to perform on football's biggest stage despite being nearly 40 years old. By the end of the competition, Cameroon had become the first African nation ever to reach a World Cup quarter-final. Even today, Roger Milla remains one of the greatest World Cup stories ever told. The idea that a 38-year-old striker could become one of the stars of the tournament sounds completely made up, but somehow it actually happened. Number 2. Brazil lost 7-1 at home. When people think of World Cup football, one nation usually comes to mind before any other: Brazil. The country has won more World Cup trophies than anyone else. They've produced legends such as Pelé, Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, Rivaldo, Romario, Cafu, Roberto Carlos and Neymar. Football isn't just a sport in Brazil, it's part of the country's identity, which is why what happened in 2014 still feels impossible to believe. Brazil hosted the World Cup that year and entered the tournament carrying the hopes of an entire nation. Fans dreamed of seeing their team lift the trophy on home soil, especially after the heartbreak of losing the 1950 World Cup final at the Maracanã. Everything seemed to be building toward a fairy tale ending. Then came the semi-final against Germany. Most people expected a close game between two football giants. Germany were strong, but Brazil were at home, backed by thousands of passionate supporters. Nobody expected what happened next. Germany scored in the 11th minute. Then they scored again, and again, and again. Before Brazilian fans could even process what was happening, Germany had scored 5 goals in just 29 minutes. The scoreboard read 5-0 before half-time. Inside the stadium, supporters were crying. Some looked completely stunned. Others simply sat in silence, unable to believe what they were witnessing. Brazil weren't just losing, they were being completely dismantled on the biggest stage imaginable. Germany eventually won the match 7-1, creating one of the most shocking results in football history. The defeat sent shockwaves around the world. Fans couldn't believe that a nation with Brazil's footballing history had suffered such a collapse, especially in a World Cup semi-final played on home soil. To make the story even crazier, Brazil had never experienced anything remotely similar at a World Cup before. For generations, they have been the team that terrified everyone else. On that night, they became the team that the entire football world couldn't stop talking about. More than a decade later, the scoreline still looks fake. Brazil, at home, in a World Cup semi-final, losing 7-1. It sounds impossible, yet it really happened. Number 1. A player scored 13 goals in a single World Cup. For our number 1 spot, we have a record that sounds so ridiculous that many football fans still struggle to believe it's real. Imagine a player scoring 13 goals at a single World Cup. Not across multiple tournaments, not throughout an international career, in just one World Cup. Now think about some of the greatest goalscorers the sport has ever seen. Pelé never did it. Ronaldo Nazario never did it. Miroslav Klose never did it. Lionel Messi never did it. Cristiano Ronaldo never did it. Neither did Kylian Mbappe. Yet one man managed to score 13 goals in a single tournament. That man was Just Fontaine. At the 1958 World Cup in Sweden, the French striker produced a goal-scoring performance unlike anything football has ever seen. From the very first match, Fontaine couldn't stop scoring. He scored against Paraguay. He scored against Yugoslavia. He scored against Scotland. Then he kept scoring in the knockout stages. Defenders couldn't stop him. Goalkeepers couldn't stop him. Nobody could stop him. By the time France's tournament came to an end, Fontaine had scored an astonishing 13 goals in just 6 matches. To put that into perspective, many modern stars would be delighted to score 13 international goals across several years. Fontaine managed it in less than a month. What's even crazier is that the record still stands today. Decades have passed, the game has evolved, players are fitter, faster and more professional than ever before. World Cups now feature more matches than they did in 1958, and yet nobody has been able to break Fontaine's record. Some players haven't even reached half of that total in a single tournament. The fact that one player scored 13 goals in one World Cup almost sounds like something from a video game. It's the type of statistic that seems exaggerated until you check the record books yourself. But the numbers don't lie. Just Fontaine really did score 13 goals at the 1958 World Cup. More than 60 years later, football fans are still waiting for someone to come close. And that's why this remains the greatest World Cup story that sounds completely fake, but is absolutely true.